Hello, and welcome to Tiffany Teach Tuesday. Sorry for my tardy to the party. Had to, I was trying to sync my background. It's not connecting for some reason. Just give me a second to add my device. So, today I'm going to discuss inheritance, talk about generational wealth and what that looks like. You know, some people feel that um, wealth is a bad thing, and it's not. It's not wrong with having wealth. What is wealth? So people think wealth and rich is the same thing, but it's actually not. Wealth is a collection of financial resources passed down, generational wealth, rather, is a collective of financial resources passed down across multiple generations. You can be rich, but not wealthy. Rich is a excess amount of income that you bring in. So there's people who accumulate a lot of money. They're rich, but after the way that they are earning that money is stop coming in, then they have no wealth left because they haven't invested the money that they were making over a period of time. I'll give an example. Whitney Houston, I think, made over $100 million. No, yeah, over $100 million more in her throughout her career. And she died broke, no money. She actually had a net worth of a negative 20 million. That meant that she had $20 million worth of debt that she owed to someone, and she did not have enough income to support that debt. So we're going to talk about net worth. What is net worth? Net worth is the amount of assets. What are assets? Assets are things that generate income. So you can have real estate, you can have 401k, you can own a business, and it has to be a profitable business. Because some people in business and their business not making any money, that's a liability. It has to be generating a profit. And then they'll get the goodwill value of the business. Then you can inherit some money, you can uh, cash in the bank. Those things are considered assets. Liability is debt. The mortgage you have on your properties, if you have any properties, the outstanding student loans, credit card bills, car notes, those are liabilities. So the amount of assets that you have, the total value of those assets. So those assets have values. So like a car that you buy, most cars depreciate. So if you say, for instance, you own a car. Now, if you had like an antique car, like a 1967 Mustang, costs about 15, 20 grand, right? Say $2,000. Now that car is worth 20,000. So you have to buy cars that are going to appreciate over time in value and not cars that loses value over time. So cars can be considered a liability. Um, so they take your value of your asset and deduct it from the liabilities that you owe, and that will give you your good faith. They'll give you your net worth value. That's how you come up with a person's net worth. So let's say you had $100,000 in assets and you had $20,000 in debt. Your net worth would be $80,000. If you had $100,000 in assets, but you had $120,000 in liability debt, your net worth will be a negative $20,000 because your liability exceeds your asset. That's how you determine wealth. It's not about, you can make, some people make $400,000 and $500,000 a year. and have nothing to show for it as far as an asset. So you make $200,000 a year and you spend every ounce of it, you have what we call a negative net worth. Yes, you own a $1.3 million home that has no equity in it. You own three Mercedes Benzes, own you a Maybach, you own all of the, you got your Gucci bags and your Prada shoes, and you own all of these material possessions, and it exceeds the debt on those possessions, exceeds the amount of income that you're bringing in. It gives you a negative net worth. Some people confuse salaries and income from working as their net worth, and is not. It is what you bring in to invest to build generational wealth. Okay. Now, another way that you can build generational wealth is through life insurance policies. And I'm going to talk about those things in more depth in the next Tiffany Teach Tuesday. I just want to talk about the overall understanding of wealth, generational wealth, and how to build it. You want to be wealthy, not rich, because rich people become poor, but wealthy people continue to build wealth. Also, believe it or not, wealthy people leave a lot of their assets to their children who are in most need. And the sad case of it is that child that needs the financial stability the most basically blows through all of the money and does not continue the generational wealth. Now, as a person that has a positive net worth that's leaving a generational wealth, it is strongly suggested that you leave it to your child who is the most responsible, who has built and accumulated their own generational wealth, and raise them accordingly. And they'll continue to take care of their siblings who will not do what's best with the mass amount of wealth that you've left behind, because you want to leave enough inheritance for your children's children. Proverbs 13:22 states, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. So for all of us religious, for all those religious people, spiritual people who believe in the Bible, you go to church and you study the word, but you don't live by it, especially when it comes to leaving a generational wealth. Now, I know people who think that their parents' debt will not affect them. So let me teach you something today. Now, a lot of times the creditor does not go after you for your parents' debt, because most of the American people are already in, their children are in debt. So they're not likely to come after your debt, after you for your parents' debt, because they're not going to obtain anything, because their children in debt, just like the parents, because this is a process that is taught, like spending, accumulating. Debt is a taught process. Some people, parents have already messed their credit up before they even turn 18, getting gas and light bills and things in their name. But you're supposed to teach inheritance and teach about building wealth. But how do you teach something that you don't even understand how to do it? And it takes the ultimate sacrifice to build generational wealth. It is making choices. If you're a person that is easily influenced by what your peers are doing, you will not build generational wealth. You have to be on a budget. You have to know when to say, I can't afford that because it's not in my budget. Not because you can't financially afford it, but because the monies that you're trying to save and the wealth that you're trying to build will never be accumulated if you continue to spend money on things that does not bring you a return on your investment. That's the first thing. Secondly, you have to understand that you have to be conscious of your spending. A lot of people just make it and spend it. They don't even know what they're spending their money on. They have no idea how they spend that much money. And I'm a firm believer in budgets and telling people, like, look, you got to budget your money. You got to cut your costs. I periodically every year, I go through my expenses. I call my creditors and I ask them, can I get a lower interest rate? I call my cable company, ask them, can they adjust my cable bill? I'll call and see if I can get a better discount and lower my expenses. I got my cable for 2 years for $25 a month. And people are like, how you do that? I said, because I called and I told them I was going to leave. And they wanted to keep me. I was a loyal customer. So you can, if you call, they'll reduce your interest rate. I got my interest rates on my credit cards down to like 4%. Call and ask. Like, they'll do that for you. That's a way that you can save. And when you save that, make that savings on less interest on things, then you should take those monies and save it and not spend it. See, people have a habit of saving money. They be like, oh, I just saved some money, but you want to spend it on something else. You didn't take it and reinvest it into something. So I'm going to give you an example of somebody saving something. So I know somebody who has set, I have developers, they'll set a budget. They say, hey, we're going to spend $3,000 on finishings. Now, I know how to bargain shop. So I would go and find all the finishings for, say, $1,500. So they save $1,500. Then the investor will be like, well, since we save $1,500 on that, we can take it and spend it over here. But we don't need to spend it. We don't. The finishes that I found are nice. The place will sell at the same price with these finishes that I found for $1,500 worth of finishes versus you going and put in money into something else that is not needed. Going out, eating and drinking. I had a client every weekend, him and his wife and their kids will go out to eat. And they would spend like every weekend. He's like, I was like, how much you spend on going out to breakfast with you and your kids and your wife? And he'd be like, oh, about 50, 60 bucks. I said, times 4, that's $240. Times 12. I'm like, you spending almost $4,000. What's that? 12? Like 3,600, almost $4,000 on carry out on a Saturday morning when you go buy some bacon, some eggs, and she can make breakfast, or you can make breakfast. It don't matter, but you can cut your costs by buying and taking your lunch. So just those little savings help you to begin to put to the side. Because people were like, in 401k, for example, I had a cousin. She's like, I'm not investing in my 401k because I don't make that much money. I said, okay, let's start here. Do a simple $50 into your 401k. And I'm going to say this from personal experience. My financial advisor was like, Tiffany, put $50 in your 403b. This is when I was an educator. And she said, put it to the side, because mind you, I already had a pension. She said, put the money into the side in your 403b, $50. She says, you're not going to see a difference in your salary. So I put the $50 in there, and she was right. My salary remained the same, because remember, those are some of those investment tools are before tax dollars. Then she was like, and then some of my after tax dollars. You just have to just know which one it is. Then she was like, put every time you get a raise, put a portion of your raise into your 403b. And learn how to keep living off what you're living off of. Put your raise into your 403b. So I did that. So I say all this to say, by the time I left to work, focus on my business full time, I had over $100,000 saved. Just by starting out saving a little bit, and then it became more. And then I had a classmate of mine who's a financial planner, and she took my funds and she looked through them and she found the funds that I should invest in, and I made some good money. Good money. When the stock market crashed, when the real estate market crashed, I invested and bought stocks because they were at their all-time low, and I cashed in on that too. So I say all of that to say, take little baby steps in saving, and you'll see it. If it's just taking every pay period and putting 50 in your 401k and putting $25 in the savings account that you can't touch. If you have a hard time saving, have it taken directly out and get one of those online bank accounts where you don't have any checks, anything, and you have to transfer the money and all of that, and just forget that it's there. Put all the paperwork away, never set it up to transfer between accounts, and you can't Zelle between accounts, and put it in your drawer, your file cabinet, your safe, and never go there. And you'll have a beautiful rainy day fund that you forgot all about, and now you can have that down payment for the home you want to buy. Then when you get those tax returns that you get, some people get those $1,000, $10,000, $5,000, $3,000 tax returns, save those and invest in those. and put them up instead of spending them on. Yes, I believe in treating yourself. I do believe in treating yourself. I have my vices. My vice is traveling and buying shoes. I am addicted to that. However, anybody that knows me well enough will tell you that I will cancel a trip if my money is not right, or if I have something that is more important to me that I need to do. Even though I may have the money to do it, but I have other things set in place, that I will cancel something to continue to save and meet my savings goal to get to what I'm trying to get to. So this was today was just an introduction to generational wealth. The next 3 Tuesdays, I'm going to break down different avenues and tools and talk about those things. And I'm going to see if I can get someone to talk to us about how you ensure that when you build this wealth and you leave it, that your children do not be in court fighting over it, and is in probate court, and they end up losing all the money to the attorneys because everybody mad about some money that wasn't even theirs in the first place. That part right there, because it's gonna be a mess when they find out you got some money and they found out their name is in it. Oh, they gonna act a fool like they earned it, and it be child that you least expected act a fool gonna act a fool for you after you gone about something that you left behind. So I hope that today has motivated and inspired some people to start thinking about leaving that generational wealth. And last thing I want to say before I'm done, if your loved ones leave you in debt, help them to not do that, because that'll minimize your generational wealth and your children's children. And we want to bless, and I know me, myself, want to be a blessing to the people that I love and not a debt or a hindrance to them. So I made sure that I put things in place so that I don't leave them in debt. But I do tell my family this: I'm better alive to them than dead, because you will not get much from me dead if you a fool anyway. So the ones that are most likely to kill you about your money, just make sure that you got a clause in it that they get written out of it if you was just to happen to die. That part right there. So we'll talk about that more later on through this July series of Building Generational Wealth. Thank you as usual for tuning in, and I hope that you got something today from this. Have a wonderful Tuesday, and I'll see you next week Tuesday.